I'm a member of the me generation, narcissistic, 60s. The people today, the millennials, are 2.5 times more narcissistic than the me generation. That just breaks my heart open. There's no way out of that. No way out. And when I work with the millennials, it breaks my heart. I feel such compassion. First of all, everybody's lied to them. Everybody's told them what they believe is the truth. And no one's told them the truth.
Zen Master Rosie. I love the way he speaks. This was just a bet though. We're going to invoke him at the end of the video. So if you really like the way he speaks, stay tuned. Few days ago, I tweeted something like, Elon Musk is shifting human civilization to Mars and Sadhguru is saving the world by raising human consciousness. What are you doing? And this tweet went a little bit viral. When your tweet goes viral, you tend to attract different sections of people. And when I checked the replies, there were people who were asking me that why are you supporting a pseudoscientist and a fraud? This intrigued me. The same people also suggested me to check the YouTube channel called Science is Dope. And they were claiming that people like Sadhguru and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, they are just a fraud. They have no substance. So I did check his videos. One thing I really liked about Pranav, that he is calling those people out who are spreading false claims in the name of religion. Because I personally believe that the more evil has been done in the name of God than the devil. And we should call these people out. But when I checked Sadhguru's and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's video, I didn't find something like that. Maybe Pranav has more understanding about science. He found some errors when they are speaking. I don't deny that. There is a possibility. But calling them fraud just because they are making some logical fallacy is not the right way. Why? Because people like Sadhguru and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar or other spiritual leaders, it's not like they're wrong. They just have their own way of contributing. So I personally think just because we don't align with somebody, we cannot cancel them. I know this is happening because of the cancel culture. I want you guys to see the videos. I am just using the glimpses here because these videos are pretty long and I cannot afford to use the full video. Though I'm going to share the links in the description. Here my point is not finding the mistakes because Pranav is very good in it and he has done the excellent job. I don't even deny that. What I deny is Pranav says that there is only one way of finding the answer, which is science. I say there are multiple ways and there are more people, they say the same thing. Let's check the Sri Sri Ravi Shankar video first, then we'll move forward.
Erwin Schrödinger, the father of quantum mechanics, said, "The multiplicity is only apparent. In truth, there is only one mind." Thousands of years ago, the Upanishads stated exactly this, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, which translates to, everything is one consciousness. Upanishad means sitting close to the master.
Time runs differently at different points in space. Is this also mentioned in our ancient scriptures?
Oh yes. Very interestingly, yes.
What is the source of this huge energy in this cosmos?
Take a tennis ball and try to find where did it begin. It will be a futile exercise.
Is God a being or the underlying force behind this universe, or God is just a vibration?
Just vibration, you are right.
The kind of questions being asked by these professors speaks volumes about the attitude India has when it comes to science. Science is supposed to be an honest inquiry into this world to answer questions about how the universe works. And these people, these scientists, would rather, instead of answering those questions with science, they would rather answer those questions with their religion or their scripture. For them, science is just a way of getting a job and making some money, nothing more.
So as I said, according to Pranav, being a scientist, you cannot go to a spiritual leader to find the answers of questions like how universe works. Because science suggests that logic is the only way of finding the answers, seeking the truth. Let's ask Sri Ravi Shankar what he thinks about logic.
In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, "Yo buddhe paratattva," that which is beyond the buddhi is that which is reality. But to get there, buddhi yoga is essential. You unite with intellect. It's not discarding intellect, discarding logic. You go to the height of logic and transcend that. You need logic. Unfortunately, people have misunderstood. They said, if something beyond logic means you shun the logic. Not shunning logic, but not getting stuck in logic. To eat pudding, you need the spoon, but you can't chew the spoon. The spoon you should take and put the pudding in the mouth. But if you start chewing the spoon, you will have no teeth left. Logic is essential to get the Vigyan, both knowledge, scientific knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Logic is essential. But you cannot get stuck in the logic because logic depends on our previous knowledge. What we call logic is a connectivity of known knowledge. And our knowledge is limited. When we accept our knowledge is limited, then we have to accept our logic is also limited. Our logic cannot surpass our knowledge.
This is the whole misconception amongst people. They think these people, they are suggesting that there is no logic. I guess Sri Ravi Shankar made complete sense what he really meant when he says logic is not the only answer or only way of finding the answer. Now let's check Sadhguru's video. What is in it?
Proton, neutron, electron are all embedded in it like these dots. They thought it was like that.
I hope the school that Jaggi studied in has revised what they're teaching their students, because this model is completely wrong. He's talking about J.J. Thomson's plum pudding model, because that's where we have electrons embedded in a ball of positive charge, like raisins embedded in a plum pudding. But notice that there are no electrons and protons in this model. Why? Because they weren't discovered back then. This model came out in 1904 and the proton was experimentally discovered in 1917 and the neutron in 1934. And also it's not physically possible for an atom to exist like this, because a proton, a positively charged proton and a negatively charged electron, if they're not moving, they will attract each other, causing the collapse of the atom. But if you look around, things don't just collapse. So yeah, this model is just plain wrong. My objective with this video was not to show that Jaggi doesn't know science. We all know that. He just knows how to talk about it confidently. My objective is to expose the sinister idea behind things he says. He says these things in order to get people to mistrust science.
Pranav thinks Sadhguru is asking people to not trust science. I don't agree to that. Few years before, I came across one beautiful discussion about science and spirituality. I am not calling it science versus spirituality because there is no such thing. They both are complementing each other when it comes to finding the answers of such questions. I want you guys to see this debate on NDTV. I don't even call it debate, it's a beautiful discussion. It's a pretty long debate, maybe 46 minutes around, but I try to cut it down in a few minutes. I want you to guys invest maybe around 10 minutes in this particular clip, because this gives the answer of all the questions what Pranav is raising here. I am not saying Pranav is wrong. I am saying there is not only one way of finding such answers of questions. Check the video. Oh, and then I'll see you again after 10 minutes. I'm not going to interrupt you guys because I want you guys to see from different perspective, because there are scientists, father of church, sociologist, and very interesting person, Swami Atmapriyananda. He has a PhD in physics and then he turned into a monk. So listen to different perspective and then make your mind that what people like Sadhguru and Sri Ravi Shankar are suggesting. Watch this video. I don't want to just do like 5 minutes or 10 minutes entertainment videos and just in the name of having good thumbnails and saying I'm exposing this person, exposing that person. I know these are the clickbaits, being a marketer. That's how you attract people, because people love negativity. My job is showing what it is, not what I really want to show. Enjoy this 10 minutes clips and I'll see you on the other side.
Is there a conflict between science and God? Can a scientist believe in God?
One important thing is, I have never uttered the word God till now, if you've not noticed that. I am not talking about God. First of all, you can consider yourself a seeker only if you have realized that you do not know. If you believe something, you cannot consider yourself a seeker. So, seeking comes out of realizing that you do not know. Now, somebody thinks their seeking is purer or better than somebody else's seeking, that is a very prejudiced way of looking at life. So there is no such thing as my kind of seeking and your kind of seeking. Everybody may seek in their own way. As long as you're seeking, there is a possibility. And these possibilities can be multiplied in different ways, these possibilities can be approached in different ways. Right now, thinking this methodology that's been established by Western methodology of a certain type of logic is the only way to seek, it is the only way to seek if you're always trying to convert science into technology. Essentially what this means is, we are always looking at the universe as to how to make use of everything. I think it's a very cross way of existence.
Sanjay, I just want to ask you one question. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of the work that you yourself have done, and there are a lot of people who have been arguing this, especially in the recent days after this, is that actually there's not necessarily a clash, that some philosophical beliefs, for example, there are a lot of people who say that in the Upanishads, in Vedanta, there are theories that are not completely dissimilar to what has actually been discovered by science so far, the existence of the Atman, the existence of Brahman, where does matter come from, where does matter go away from. Would you agree with that, there is not necessarily a conflict?
I would quote from Swami Vivekananda, who was a confirmed non-believer turned believer in some sense. He asks a simple question: should a religion subject itself to be scrutinized by the same kind of criteria by which secular sciences are subject to scrutiny? Yes or no? He says a big yes, and because of that, if religion goes away, let it go, and you should have gone long ago. If religion shies away from being tested by the same kind of criteria by which secular sciences are being tested, that kind of religion does not deserve to exist. That is his… So the idea is, we all, the scientists as well as the spiritualists, are seeking, according to Swami Vivekananda, unity. We all of us are seeking unity. We are asking the question, is it possible to have one single theory because of economy of nature, because of the beauty of nature? This was referred in the Upanishads long ago. You call it a spirituality, you call it science, by any name you call it. Kasminna bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati in the Mundakopanishad. What is that by knowing which everything can be known? He does not call it either the spirit or Brahman or the Atman or God, no name. Is it possible to know that one entity by knowing which everything can be known? And interestingly, the answer given is, all that you can know comes under the realm of aparavidya or science. That you can know really and truly through the intellect is only at the lower realm.
You were saying, you were indicating that you think that the Upanishads and some of these scriptures and doctrines actually have the underpinnings of modern science.
No. Underpinning in the sense there are parallels, the language seems to be similar, but the approach could be different. We don't know. Okay. Semantics are very misleading.
At the end of the day, is there a conflict? Are they both seeking the same thing?
There are two dangers here. One is trying to force an unnecessary unity by saying, you know, I see similarities, Fritjof Capra style. The other great danger is when scientists want to be historians of science, like Professor Bhargav. He's a disaster. Christianity had a particular kind of relation on evolution. But that doesn't mean other cosmologies debated the same way. Okay. The important thing is not unity. It is how difference can be complemented.
There are two aspects to this. Number one, can the entire nature of existence as we know it be explained either by religion or by science? That's question number one. And a related question, are there some aspects of existence which can be explained by science and other aspects are a mystery which can then only be explained by religion? So, Sadhguru, which of the two is it? Is there one unit, one reality which either of them should be able to explain, or are there different aspects of it which each should look at?
It is improper to call only a certain way of thought and a certain way of experimentation as science. There are yogic sciences. Maybe the Western scientists think it is not science, but we have applied ourselves much more than you have applied in your life towards the science. Human capabilities are different and beyond the possibilities of intellect. Intellect is just comes up first because it is a tool for survival. The moment you're born, your senses and your intellect are on because these are tools for survival. But if you strive, there are other dimensions of perception within a human being. Those things have never been explored and you keep on saying only that is science. That is not fair. We have been exploring these sciences for thousands of years. Just in the last 150 years, only because you have provided facilities for people, okay? Only because technologies have come, gadgets have come, that has become science. It's popular science. The profound science that you're talking about, unfortunately, is playing to popularism. There are other ways of studying existence. First of all, the basis of existence for here, for me, is myself. Here for you is yourself. Because your perspective of the existence is only the way it projects in your mind, there is no other way to see it, the way your senses show it to you. Putting the whole existence to the test of human logic is a very simplistic science.
Okay. Can we explain existence as we know it entirely from the prism of science as we know it?
As human logic.
Whether it's biological science, physical science or chemical science?
The only way that we can arrive at an answer that will stand the test of time is by using the scientific method. And in the past, when such reliable answers have been obtained, people have unwittingly used the scientific method without knowing that they're doing it. The method was actually codified only about the 13th century. You know, I have read all the scriptures. We use the term spirituality. Now, what do we mean by this term? We use the term soul. Now, biologically, there's no question soul doesn't exist. There's not a shred of evidence of the existence of soul as we commonly perceive it.
But the greatest of respect said there was no existence, there was no proof or evidence of the existence of the Higgs boson until earlier this week. And even now we don't know.
But Higgs boson was, we knew that if the, you know, the standard model of particle physics had to be correct, we knew that Higgs boson must exist. Science allows you to...
But because science has not been able to establish the existence of the soul as of this moment, doesn't mean that it does not happen. Because the science once upon a time thought that once upon a time science said that the world, the whole universe centers around the earth. That was science at that time. There was a time when science said that the atom is indivisible. There was a time when science felt, so science changes. So I'm just saying the fact that science hasn't established a soul right now doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Science cannot explain some of the most fundamental. Science cannot define matter. What is a particle? Physics cannot define. And it is happy that it cannot define. Well, it cannot define space. It cannot define time. So everything need not be defined actually.
I can only hope that Swamiji knows his spirituality better than he knows his science. And I also want to say that spiritual discussions are not the sole ownership of spiritual leaders. It's part, all of us have a right to talk about it, so I want to say a few things. First, it is wrong to say that the Vedas contain all this information. It's completely wrong. It is true, it contains very high wisdom, and it's an insult to the Vedas to try to read modern science into it. It deals with matters which are far more important. Now, when 3 quarks were found someday, 40 years ago, the number 3 was discovered in the Vedas in 20 places. People said, look, it said 3, it said 3. Then 7 particles were discovered, it said 7. That is not saying Vedas knew this. The Vedas knew something much deeper. The difference between science and somebody saying something like, all began out of nothing, a statement like that, is the number of predictions, precise predictions that you can make. When science says there was a Big Bang, there are 10,000 things you can measure and check it is true. When Vedas say it all started out of nothing, there is nothing you can check afterwards.
Sadhguru is talking about belief as opposed to knowing something. At the end of the day, is religion what you have to believe?
No, one second. One second. What is the problem with my two good friend scientists here is that they have only one methodology of knowing. And they're saying that unless a thing can be experimented with and reach a result and can be retested, that is real knowledge.
No, that is
Rest
real
is not
science.
knowledge.
That is real science.
But both Sadhguru has said, and I maintain that is not the only way. In philosophy, there is a school which is called logical positivists. Logical positivists always believe that the only knowledge that can be acquired is through perceptions and through senses. But it is believed now all other philosophers like Habermas, Gadamer, Paul Ricoeur and so many other sociologists as well, who would say no, there are other ways of knowing. Though Sadhguruji is talking about spiritual ways of knowing, but through pure intellectual process, through philosophical process, there is a way of knowing things that cannot be known through scientific experiment. So basic problem here is that whether we have only scientific way of knowing or whether there are other ways of knowing. Art, for example, art, music, poetry, love, your sensitivity. Can this be proved by science? Can they be measured by science?
Unfortunately, very much. They can be measured.
Okay, the point I've been trying to get you to talk about is a lot of the science out here there in the scriptures, or are they not?
So the difficulty is, what kind of, take a statement out of context and say this is parallel to that. I think that's a very kind of a profane game, which we should not play.
Okay.
So, as he said, they contain a lot of wisdom, and try to understand them as they are. They're different paradigms. Arthur Eddington was a very great astrophysicist, is a contemporary of Einstein, has a book called The Nature of the Physical World. That was written in the 30s. The last chapter, Mysticism and Science, that is the title of the chapter. There he says that we have two kinds of knowledge. One is symbolic knowledge, which is acquired through science and through measurement and through experimentation. Other is intimate knowledge, which we just feel it in our bones. We just know what it is. He gives the example of humor. Somebody says, I give a piece of joke. I'm a scientist, and I say I should define what is a joke, what are the criteria by which a good joke can be called a joke. 1, 2, 3. Just like you subject a chemical salt in a laboratory to tests. Then after having tested this joke scientifically, analytically, I come to the conclusion, yes, it is a joke. Now laugh.
See, the essence of what I'm saying is, quest is quest. Quest comes from essentially a human being realizing that he does not know. And he does not know only because he has refused to assume things. People who have assumed and concretized that into a belief system, they will never seek because they already know without knowing. The reason why modern science has become the way it has become is because there's been so much misuse of the ancient ways of doing things. Horrible misuse has happened. At that time, science came with a method which could be least misused. But you cannot say science has not been misused either.
But Sadhguru, couldn't that same argument also be used for religion? Because in a lot of religions, there's a dogma. This is exactly what happened. This is what God is. This is what the nature of religion is.
That is not seeking.
So you think that's also as wrong as the other would be? Because in a sense, there's a dogma out there.
It's somebody wants to assume something. What they assume and believe in simply is a cultural influence. Depending upon which culture you're born in, accordingly you believe something. Different people believe different things. Belief will give you solace. Belief will not give you a solution.
After watching this discussion, one thing is clear. That they respect each other's way of finding the answer. This is what I am asking. Why can't we respect each other when we are finding the answers of those questions which we all have? Those are still unanswerable. Isn't it a beautiful thing where everybody is involving each other? Why we have to polarize each other that no, I am the only one who is right and you are wrong? It's happening from both sides. But there are sane people as well. They are not doing this. If somebody is a fraud, call them a fraud. But we need an evidence to call them fraud, not just on the basis of speculation. On the basis of speculation, you can do experiments You can do discussions and debate, but you cannot conclude. This is again not about Sadhguru or Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. This is about every spiritual leader. Authentic spiritual leaders. Again, not those they are spreading the false propagandas. But there are authentic people as well. And we cannot keep everyone in the same basket. That's what Jordan Peterson is saying. Hearing him out.
I don't know what happens to a person if they bring themselves completely into alignment. I've had intimations of what that might mean. We don't understand the world very well. We don't understand how the world could be mastered if it was mastered completely. We don't know how an individual might manage that. We don't know what transformations that might make possible. That's mysticism rather than religion, is it not?
Well, I don't know if you can draw a distinction between those two things to some degree, because you could say that in a religious system there's two components and people are temperamentally inclined to align with one or the other. There's a dogmatic component, so the conservatives are more likely to align with that, and there's a active mystical component which updates the conservative component but also threatens it, so which is what creative thought does in general. And so I would say that the mystical element of that is religious, but it's more on the transformative side. But I also think that figures like the Buddha, he's an exemplar of the possibilities of that alignment. And the exercises, the yogic exercises, for example, are attempts to bring that alignment into being. It's very centered on the body, which is quite interesting, even though it's a spiritual tradition, right? It's very, very centered on the body. There's a call to nobility in the idea of imitation of the logos, but it's more than that. It's a call to something of, well, the hypothesis is it's a call to something of cosmic significance. And I don't think that we have any right to assume that that idea is wrong. We don't understand our place in the cosmos. And if you base your analysis on size, physical size, well, there are bigger things than us. But that's not a reasonable yardstick. There isn't anything that's more complex than us, not that we know of. So why not use that as a marker? And there is something. There's an integral relationship between consciousness and being, and that isn't taken with sufficient seriousness by the materialist community. They keep, like people like Daniel Dennett, for example, and he wrote a book on consciousness, which his critics, it was called Explaining Consciousness, and his critics called it Explaining Consciousness Away. And I read the book, and that is what he did as far as I'm concerned. And people like Sam Harris have a real hard time with free will, and so their proclivity is to deny it. But they act out the proposition that people have free will, including themselves, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to exist in society, because people aren't very happy when you treat them like they're not at least semi-autonomous agents. I think the postmodern objection to meaning is actually wrong. Well, we talked about this earlier. I do believe that there's a transcendent ethic, and I do believe that it touches on the metaphysical. I believe people experience that because people are perfectly capable of having unutterably profound religious experiences. And the naturalistic materialists don't know what the hell to do with that. They have no idea what to do with that fact. Say, well, it's delusional. It's like, well, hang on a sec. People who have those experiences appear to be more successful and healthier. It's like, so exactly in what manner is that delusional? And if you induce it in the lab with psilocybin, for example, among people who are dying of cancer, their fear of death goes away. It's like, you're going to just lay that out there as delusional, or they'll quit smoking. 85% success rate with one mystical experience on psilocybin produces 85% cessation rate in smoking. Yeah. It's completely, and with MDMA, ecstasy, the 3 treatments with MDMA, that's what the current research indicates, produces a 72% cure rate for intractable post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like, those are miracle cures, and they have to be accompanied by the mystical experience. No one knows how to account for that. And so there is a transcendent ethic.
So it's a very physical thing. I mean, in a case like that, you talk about ayahuasca or any of these things, right? You're eating something, you're ingesting something, smoking it, whatever it is. It's physical, it's here and now, but the experience
is metaphysical. Sure, that's a place where the biological and the transcendent touch, and we don't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why psychedelics threw our whole culture into such a flipped this upside down. No one knew what to do with them. You know, I mean, the Indians regarded psilocybin as food of the gods for a reason. And when people have encountered psychedelic substances throughout human history, that's always how they've been characterized. That's right, food of the gods. It's like, beware of them. But they open the door to the transcendent. And, well, I think the evidence that they are doing something, that psychedelic substances are doing something that we seriously don't understand at all, not a bit.
Obviously, there are a few things in our life we cannot make a sense of it. Jordan Peterson talked about yogic practices, psychedelics. I have my own experiences of psychedelics as well. What I really mean by this, there are metaphysical dimensions, and as an individual you can experience. Maybe you cannot prove it. I myself am a classical yoga practitioner. You cannot deny that people have their own metaphysical, mystical experiences in their life. You cannot deny that mysticism does exist. And mysticism has its own way of finding the answers. That's what Jordan Peterson is saying. My commentary is not even required. Because who the hell I am to talk about such things? What substance I have other than my individual perception and the experience? I don't have any credibility. That is the core reason I'm using all these experts in their own areas to talk about such stuff. They're coming together and telling, no, there are more than one way. There are multiple ways. They're screaming. Why I have so much reverence towards about yoga? Because yoga has transformed my life. I was a chain smoker for so many years. I was into alcohol. I started getting into marijuana. I started abusing my body just to have some experiences or just to explore. You know, sometimes we say, I'm just exploring. But when I came across yogic practices, I realized why I was not aware of these yogic practices earlier. Why not in my school? Because we give a label of primitive. That all these are primitive things, it does not make any sense. Why? Just because experimentally you cannot prove it. I have a complaint to my education system why I was not being introduced to such a powerful thing called yoga. Why not? Why can't we integrate all of these things? Obviously, we have to put it optional. Why? Just because these things are primitive. I'm really glad that Jordan Peterson is talking about all of these things. If Sadhguru didn't come in my life and make me realize that what you are trying to explore, you can explore through yoga as well. I was lost in my life. It's not about, again, Sadhguru, Sri Ravi Shankar or any other master. It is about the method. The ancient methods. And they do work. I know they do work. Jordan Peterson says they do work. There are many other experts, they say they do work. Why are we trying to cancel each other? We are the victim of cancel culture. Even in India, right wing, left wing. Right wing says whatever you say it's bogus. Left wing says whatever you say it's bullshit. Just the labeling. And there are people like me in the middle. Where to go? It's not making any sense. So far we have explored what is happening. Now let's explore why is this all happening? What is the root of it? Jordan Peterson used the word postmodernism. Let's find the answer from Zen Master. I told you, I promised you, we're going to invoke him again. He is going to give us the answer why this is happening.
I was so excited to see Jordan Peterson erupt onto the stage, and I know you had particular part in that. There is a culture war that is in bright precedence. I mean, we are in the middle of a culture war. There's a polarization, and Jordan Peterson is standing in the middle as a lightning rod, taking all the projections from both sides. He clearly sees the postmodern ideology, and it is an ideology. It's a system of beliefs and values that will not lead us to the promised land. It is problematic. It leads us into a swamp with no exit. It is not sustainable. He sees it very clearly. And in my opinion, he sees it from a modern perspective. Very brilliant modern perspective. And he has a depth because of his understanding of Carl Jung and his own work in psychology, the field of psychology, that is deeper than most people. So people are drawn to that depth. He sees something much deeper than other people are seeing right now. For me, when I see him describing this ideology of postmodern egalitarian relativism and describing it so precisely, and then I listen to Ken Wilber describing the same disease, there are some interesting differences between their two descriptions, and there are even more interesting similarities. Jordan Peterson has the depth of Jung's perspective, and Ken has that too. He studied Jung and Neumann. But he has a much bigger philosophical view that is a little bit more evolved, passed into the integral realm. But the two perspectives are fascinating to me, and both of them are critical. The antidote, the medicine for the postmodernity, I believe Ken sees, and I'm not sure Jordan Peterson does. And Ken has a name for this. He calls it aperspectival madness. And it is madness. There's no way out. The culture war in our society, Western, postmodern society, at war with modern beliefs and traditional beliefs, is a psychosis.
So this aperspectival madness is kind of best summarized as this idea there is no truth, and yet that is a truth.
That's part of it. That's the nihilism, the relativistic nihilism, which is saying there is no absolute truth, and that's an absolute truth. Everything's relative, and that's absolutely true. That's crazy making. That's half of it. The other half of it is rampant narcissism. If there is no absolute, if there is no power greater than my ego, what am I going to worship? As Ken points out, there are studies that show that I'm a member of the me generation, narcissistic, 60s. The people today, the millennials, are 2.5 times more narcissistic than the me generation. That just breaks my heart open. There's no way out of that. No way out. And when I work with the millennials, it breaks my heart. I feel such compassion. First of all, everybody's lied to them. Everybody's told them what they believe is the truth. And no one's told them the truth.
Jordan Peterson and Zen master Rosie, they both talked about postmodernism. What is postmodernism? There are different lenses of seeing the world. When we talk about the era, we generally talk about traditional and the modern. But there is also the postmodern. What is the difference between traditional and modern? Traditional are more orthodox, conservative kind of people. They just have their own belief. They just want to operate from their belief system. Modern people are logic-oriented people. They want reasoning, rationalization. People like Pranav, people like those, they have science orientation in their life. Who is right, who is wrong? Doesn't matter. They both have their own way of doing things. Then the third category is, I'm not generalizing, I'm just simply saying what are the philosophical lenses of seeing the life. Then the third category is postmodernism. These people are generally, they tend to be skeptical. The current generation is coming from this category, postmodernism. Because being logical, being intellectual, you have to invest a lot to understand things. Right? It takes a lot. And we don't have that much time. We don't want to do research. So postmodernist people are very skeptical. Again, skepticism is not bad. The problem is the cynicism. They are cynical about everything. And that's why they are calling people fraud. Even without having evidence, without having any research. Maybe there are people, they are fraud. But you have to prove it. What are the proofs you have? Why they're calling frauds? Because they are just skeptical. Again, if they are skeptical, it's not a problem, but they are just cynical about things. And then they are just concluding. That's what postmodernism is. So what is the solution according to Ken Wilber, according to integral theory? They also call it theory of everything. You have to do your own research because I cannot explain it integral theory just like that. Because even I'm not well versed with these things. They are not very complicated, but they have more depth. So I'm just studying. The day I'm ready, I may make a video on integral theory as well. But you can do your own research. According to integral theory, the meta-modernists are the solution. Who are the meta-modernists? They are integrating that there is something good in traditional people, something good in science as well. And you also have to use the skepticism to see the things, because postmodernism is actually a good thing. You have to filter things. But again, as I mentioned, they are not skeptical, they are cynical, they are rejecting everything. And this is what our current generation is doing. We are confusing them. They are neither with the root nor with the science. Because they don't have the clear understanding about both. They are just collecting something from here, something from there. And because of that, overall they are becoming cynical. We need the meta-modernism way. And if I'm not wrong, I guess that's what metaverse is. Meta-modernism is a philosophy, metaverse is the technological expression of it. You have to do your own research now. These 10 minutes, 15 minutes, quick video motivations are not going to help you. If you really want to understand what is happening, you have to involve yourself, you have to invest. This is what I wanted to convey. Stop concluding, stop cancelling people. Cancel culture is the result of postmodernism. It's not just in the West, this is happening in India, this is happening all over YouTube. We also call it WhatsApp University. I am not going to believe in it, even if they are right. But even they don't know they are right. That's postmodernism. You have to do more research on it. That's what I wanted to conclude in this video. I'm not saying that he is right, he is wrong. I'm simply saying a person who is saying only I am right is wrong. A person who is saying everybody is wrong is also wrong. That's it. Now it's up to you how you want to take things. I would expect you will invest more in such things and make your own mind, because this is the way forward. If you really want to progress, make your own mind. There are two ways of seeing things as far as science is concerned: the experimental science and the experiential science. We cannot say experiential science is not legit. What about those people? They actually have the experiences. Can't they consider evidence amongst themselves? Obviously, they cannot force you to believe in it. You don't have to. But we cannot even discard them. We cannot label them. I don't know what to say now. Make your own mind, do your own research.
I have a lot of new subscribers because Dhruv Rathi shared my video on Instagram.